This video should attempt to explain the extended pairwise comparisons method. So we want to rank these four candidates from first to fourth by putting them in head-to-head battles with each of the other candidates and declaring a winner, loser, and a tie in each of those battles. A win is worth 1 point. 1 point, you receive no points if you lose, and a tie is half of a point should each candidate receive the same number of preference votes. So this table is just set up to make the comparisons easier. A versus A, the rows are going to be in charge here. Obviously, A can't go against itself. When we look at this cell right here that I just put a dot in, that is how many votes A receives in preference to B. So that will be the first comparison we look at in our preference schedule above. And we look at each column and determine who is preferred, A or B. So the first thing I'm going to keep track of is how many voters prefer A. And in the first column, we see that 14 voters prefer A. And if we look at each of the last four columns, A is last. So none of those voters in the last four columns prefer A to B. Each of those voters prefers B. So in this cell right here, I'm going to write 14 points for A. What that also tells me is that B receives the rest of the votes in this schedule, which is 10 plus 8 plus 4 plus 1. So we get 23 votes for B versus A. Let's go and look at A versus C. So obviously A wins these 14 votes. And you might notice that because A is ranked last, that A is not going to win any other votes. So 14 here for A versus C. What we can do is figure out how many votes C has. Well, if A only gets 14, then when it comes to A versus C, C is going to get 23 votes. Let's go A versus D. Again, the same situation. A will only win those 14 votes, and D, when it goes up against A, will win 23 votes. So what we can see now in our table is that we've matched up A versus every other candidate, and we see that A wins 14 votes in each of those pairwise comparisons, whereas the other candidates always receive 23, the rest of the votes, which means A has no wins. A loses to B, C, and D. There are no ties. A gets 0 points. The other thing we could write down is that each of these candidates, B, C, and D, has won against A. So A goes in the win column for these three. And I'm not going to total up the points yet because we're not done, but each of these candidates will receive at least 1 point. Let's finish the rest of our comparisons. Let's go to B. And when we do B versus C, we've already done B versus A, and B can't go up against itself. I'm going to first keep track of how many votes B wins versus C. In the first column, B wins versus C because C is ranked lower. In the second column, B loses to C, does not get those votes. In the third column, B again loses to C, does not get those votes. But B is preferred in this column. B is ranked higher than C by these 4 voters, and B loses this vote because it's ranked lower than C. That gives B a total of 18 votes when it goes up against C. C would get the remaining votes, which would be 10 plus 8 plus 1, or 19. Let's go B versus D. Again, we're looking for where B is preferred. B wins these 14 votes. It's above D. B wins these 10 votes. B loses these 8 votes, wins those 4, and loses that 1. So we see that B wins 28 of the votes when it goes up against D. D receives the rest. When D goes up against B, it gets 9 votes. So we could fill in some other wins here. For B, we can see that it's going to lose versus C and win against D. And all of B's comparisons have been made. B receives 2 points for its 2 wins. Let's fill out the rest with C and D. We need to do C versus D. That's really our last comparison. Let's see where C is preferred first, which is in this column and this column. Loses to D here, loses to D here, but wins right here. So we have 25 points that C gets up against D. D would get the rest, which is 12, which means C wins the head-to-head battle against D. C lost to B. Down here for D, excuse me, that is incorrect. That is what's off. I forgot to record B as a win. For D, it won its battle versus A, it lost its battle versus B, and it lost its battle versus C. So we have 3 points for C, 1 point for D. If we had to declare a winner, the winner would be C, but we want to extend. So our extended comparisons here asks us to do first, second, third, and fourth, and that's just going to be based on the points that each candidate received in this extended pairwise comparisons method. So first would be C, then B, D, and A. So A is our plurality winner, but when we do the head-to-head comparison, A comes in last. So A is not a Condorcet candidate, does not meet the Condorcet criterion. I hope that helps. This table is just one way to organize those head-to-head comparisons. You may have a different way that you prefer, but you do need to see the total points for each candidate in order to do the extended comparison.